I'm Bob Toller with SDSU Extension, and I'd like to visit with you a little bit about alternate feedstuffs for swine. As we look at worldwide demand for grains, especially as livestock production increases, we see that our local grain prices increase, and typically we feed corn to pigs. So what are some other things that we can feed if corn prices are too high or corn is in short supply? So really there's two different types of new ingredients that we can look at. First would be the alternate feedstuffs, and basically that's products that we already grow or locally available, and the other one would be our byproducts or co-products. And I think one of the classic ones that we have here in South Dakota is DDGS, but there are also other co-products out there available that we're less familiar with. I think some questions first we've got to ask ourselves before we utilize or buy a bin full of alternate feedstuffs is, first of all, do I have enough room to store it on my place? Most operations don't have enough bin space. So if you're going to buy a semi-load of product X, where are you going to put it? Do you have a new bin space, or are you going to get rid of something else that you're currently using? How long is the product available at lower price? Is this something that's just going to work for a month and then go back to a high price? If it is, you probably don't want to use it. Are there any special handling, grinding, storage issues? Milo or grain sorghum are going to be an excellent example of that. We're going to have to fine grind it, or we take a look at barley, we may have to run it through a roller mill, hammer mill to make sure that's better. How variable is a product? It needs to be consistent in nutrient content, so as we put together those diets, we realize that the product that the pigs eat is going to be consistent. Trucking cost. While here in Brookings it may be looking pretty good to buy something in Aberdeen, the cost of shipping it all the way over here could be pretty expensive. Or if we're looking at pulling something out of Illinois, while the price on the board may look good, we've got to figure in that additional trucking cost. And also, finally, are there any things in those products, those alternate feedstuffs, that affect growth performance or carcass composition? We look at different grain sources. Corn's a gold standard, obviously. Barley's a little bit lower, Milo's lower, oats is lower, but actually wheat has 105% feeding value of the corn. So basically just back calculate cost per pound. Using those factors, you can determine when other feedstuffs come back in. And again, the market's balanced pretty quickly, so some of those adjustments may be made, but on a regional basis, depending where you're at, barley, Milo, wheat, oats, all could be great things to feed in swine diets. Protein sources, soybean meal is typically what we use. What else can we use? DDGS, we're seeing more and more of that go into diets every day and working well. Field peas, canola meal, synthetic amino acids, cold-pressed oilseeds all work well if we properly use them in the diets. DDGS is kind of an interesting thing because we go by the thing, if it's brown it's bad, if it's gold it's good. And it all depends why it's brown. If it's brown because it's overheated, then that would be a good statement. If it's brown because there's more solubles, it still could be a pretty good product. So work with your ethanol plant where you get the DDGS to make sure you get a high quality product. And that right now is probably the best way pork producers can save money on feed costs. How much do we put in a diet? If you look at the right hand side, it says maximum inclusion rate. And the rates that you see there is if we don't consider economics. Basically, nursery phase, 25%, grow finish, 20%, gestating sows and boars, 50%, lactating sows, 20%. However, we're not in a normal situation right now, so I think people can go higher levels, especially go in the grow finish phase, since that's where most of the feed is. There's some work out of Kansas State. They went up to 60% DDGS and grow finish diets, did not affect growth performance. The one thing we have to watch out for is a little bit about soft fat. A couple alternatives would be the last 3 weeks before you harvest the pigs, put them on a low DDGS diet, but we want to make sure that iodine value is less than 73. But again, talk with your packer, find out what their process is with high DDGS diets. Other byproducts that we can look at, but again, questions we have to ask yourself. Do we have human risk factors? Are there things like salmonella mycotoxins in there that we typically wouldn't expect that are in this product? Are the nutrient compositions suited to swine? We could look at feather meal, which would have high in protein, but those amino acids aren't available, so it'd be a terrible thing to add in swine diets. What other costs? Again, transportation, storage. Do we have to have antioxidants? Processing, extra labor. Do some of these things wear and tear on my grinding, mixing equipment more? The other thing is who's in charge of quality control. The more of these things that you use, you are bearing the responsibility of that. You're going to take the analysis, send it in, have it analyzed. You can't rely on reference tables when you do this. Does it reduce cost of production? Most of the time, but again, it's got to be a long-term advantage. Is a byproduct availability and quantity sufficiency around where it's worth the time and hassle of making the switch to it. And again, the old pork industry handbook that we have available has a great way to take a look at seeing how these things work out. Different byproducts, basically things from the wet milling industry, gluten feed and gluten meal don't work well. They need to be fed to poultry and to cattle. Wheat midds can be a really good source, something we should consider, but watch out for mycotoxins. Milk products are great. The only problem with them is they're very expensive. And again, that's why we only feed them in starter diets. Bakery products are excellent, but we have to worry about a high salt in those things and also high levels of sugar and fats but again, as a nutritionist, we can work around. Meat and bone meal and meat meal, again, due to the low tryptophan content, we've got to keep them minimal in the diet. National Swine Nutrition Guide that we have at SDSU can tell us those maximum levels. Believe it or not, when we take a look at the 2009 corn crop, some of the stuff looked pretty crappy as we see on the right. However, it still had a feeding value to pigs. We did a couple trials on that, and it basically is from 100 to 260 pounds. Pigs on that low quality grain performed as well as other pigs. The key thing is you feed it from 100 pounds on, and then you make sure the mycotoxin levels are low. So in summary, I think most producers can look at alternate grains like barley, milo, DDGS, those types of things, and it can pencil in, but realize every time we move away from corn and soybean meal, there will be hidden costs that we're not used to. So, and also again, heaven forbid we've got weather damaged grain again, but realize that there can be a market if you feed it to pigs. So I hope those give you some ideas of things to think about, alternate feedstuffs, how to lower your feed costs and remain more profitable in swine production. If you have any more questions, please contact your local extension representative or check out igrow.org. Thank you.